All right, so for our supplies, I'm going to be using some 28 gauge weaving wire and some 20 gauge base wire. So this is artistic wire. My base wire is in the color gold, and then my weaving wire, just to give it a little bit of contrast, or not a contrast, but like a mixed metal look. Let me see what it is. It's called rose gold color. All right, so regular gold color, and then we got rose gold color. I think they look nice together. And then my little leaf is actually a silver color, so just a very mixed metal look here. Now this leaf, I found it online. You can search for hollow leaf charm. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave some links below this video in the information section for the wire and some leaf options as well. Just a few different like links to sellers that I found on Amazon. In case, you know, one's not available at the time you're watching this video, I'll just do like a few different links, and those will be my Amazon affiliate program links. So if you need help, you know, finding these, or you can just, you know, Google as well and try and find it yourself, totally up to you. But for the base wire, you're gonna need 2 pieces of it. And let me measure my 2 pieces of wire here. So they are about 7.5 inches. And of course, it also depends on the size ring that you're trying to make, because the bigger the size, the more wire you might need, but this should be adequate for most ring sizes. And then the leaf, I forgot to measure it, but it's just a teeny bit less than 20 millimeters, in case you want to know the exact size of that. So what I'm gonna do first is I am going to take 1 piece of this wire, and I'm going to put it through this little, I don't know what it's called, this little bail thing that the leaf has. And what I'm gonna do is give myself, let me measure this actually, so this is very accurate. Give myself like 2 inches. Give myself 2 inches of this wire. Okay, so I'm just gonna bend it. Like this. All right, and what I'm gonna do now with this little end of the wire, let me zoom in a little. I'm gonna make some swirls. So this might be hard because it's all moving all over the place. You might have to just really put some effort into holding it with both hands. But I'm making a swirl to try and cover up this little hole, I guess we'll call it. All right, so I'm making a swirl, and then I'm actually gonna just keep going with that swirl, but I'm gonna make another one like in the same direction right next to it, like this. See that? Like that. Try to make that a little bit smaller. There we go. Perfect. And it's up to you. You can kind of make this go even further up. But what I'm gonna do, let me grab my pliers for this. My pliers to help me here. I'm gonna make like a really little loop, and I'm gonna put the end of this wire through one of these holes. So just work it through. You might not be able to get it through these bottom holes because they're really tiny, but just work it through. So I made the little loop, and then I put it through, and I'm just pushing it through with my pliers. so that I end up with a really little loop, because initially it was kind of a big loop, and that's why I'm pushing it through. Oop. Try and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. You can even pull on this wire here. You can just go ahead and pull. And now I'm just very gently, because you can scratch the coating off this wire very gently, I'm just bending this swirl down so that it lays flat. So it looks like this. Don't worry that this wire got moved. We'll put it back where it's supposed to go. And then to finish off the end of this wire, I'm just bringing it back to the front here. I'm just going to trim off the little end. And I'm just going to tuck that little wire end away. So that little end there, just tuck it down. So now you can't see it. So let me hold it this way. Here's what it looks like. All right, now this wire, I wanted to go in the other direction. It kind of got bent. So I'm just gonna fix it by bending it into the correct direction. All right, this is how we want it to look. Right. Now, I'm gonna take my other wire. Let me zoom out a little bit. And I'm gonna make a little loop at the top of it. So I'm taking my round nose pliers. I like to kind of squish the very tip of the wire. You don't need to, just however you make your little loops. But I like to kind of squish the tip of my wire when I make the loop. It helps me personally make like the tightest little loop. But you just want to have a little loop, that's all. This is the way we're going to be holding it. All right, so what you want to do now is we're going to use this wire with the little loop on it. And we're going to use our weaving wire. And so that our weaving wire can stay on the spool and we can weave with it for the remainder of the ring, what I'm going to do is grab myself a little end piece of a few inches long. And I'm going to wrap just like once or twice around, just so it's secure and attached to my wire here, and it can move up or down. So what you want to do is, sorry, it's hard to see because it's gonna fall, but I'm bending my wire kind of like around my leaf, like that. See that? And now I'm taking my wire, actually let me see if I can, there we go, zoom in. I'm taking my wire and I'm putting it through whatever is the bottommost hole that you can reach. Just pull it through. All right. Now I'm just gonna move it up. Try to tighten that up. And then I'm just gonna wrap around the wire itself just a few times. Okay, don't worry about this here. We're gonna fix that later. Just focus on attaching the leaf. So then you're just gonna wrap around until you're close enough to the next little hole. All right, so right now I'm approaching and move this down so that it lines up nicely with like the tip of your leaf. All right, right, so I've reached the next little hole. So I'm putting the wire through the hole. So this is my second attachment of the leaf to the wire. And then I'm wrapping around just the wire. So once through the hole and then just around the wire until I get to the next hole. All right, so I'm close to the next hole. So I'm taking my wire, putting it through the next hole in the leaf, pulling it through, and now I'm just going to wrap around this wire again. And that's why we wanted a nice little long end here that's several inches long, because we need it to be long enough for all of this. So putting it through the next hole, wrapping around and around and around. All right, I'm going to try to bend the wire closer to my leaf. There we go, that's good. This is going to be my last one, my last little hole. And at this point, my wire is so short that sometimes I even need to use my pliers to help me. All right, so as I finish off this wire, let me grab my wire cutters there. I'm just gonna trim it. And then the little end of it, just gonna squish it down, almost like turning it, so it ends up being on the side here, like the wire end is squished down on the side, so it doesn't poke the out the front or the back, since this is a ring and it will be touching your finger. All right, so now we've attached the leaf to both wires, and now we can continue with this. So these little loops I said we'll get back to. Now's our chance to tighten them up. I'm just gonna do just a few more loops here until this will be able to meet up with the other wire. Let's see how it meets up with it. A few more. All right, so now if we bend this wire, let me just pull on it a little, straighten it by running it through my fingers because it got a little discombobulated there. So now they reach. So this wrap reaches the point where the two wires are together. So I know at first they don't look that like right on top of each other, because obviously like it gets thrown off by the fact that these little swirls are there, but it'll work out to be fine in the end. Just do your best to get them as lined up as possible. So the next step is pretty easy. It just involves doing a weave around the 2 wires for the majority of the ring, basically for the band of the ring. Now I have a tutorial I did recently on a really beautiful weaving pattern, but I'm actually going to do a different one, one that's a little quicker in this video. So this weaving pattern involves wrapping twice around both wires, and I'll repeat this a few times, and then wrapping 4 times around this wire here, which when I flip this over in the direction of the ring, that's going to be the bottommost wire, but right now it's kind of our topmost wire. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you have 4 little loops there that you should be able to see, and then twice around both again. So 1 and 2, and then around just the top wire 4 times. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, and I did it a little loose, so you should be able to see each individual little wrap, but then of course you want to tighten it up. Just want you to really get a good view of the pattern, and then when it tightens up, it looks like that. So twice around both wires, 4 times around the top wire. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then twice around, I'm just making sure they're together, twice around both, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll show you 1 second up close how that's looking. So now it's really starting to be a noticeable pattern, and it also helps hold these 2 wires together. So it's brought them together, and even though they started out kind of wonky coming out of different places, now they're nice. So here's what it looks like so far, and what you want to do is keep going with this weave. I'm just going to do it off camera because it's going to be really long. But then you're going to hold your ring on the size that you want to make, and you're going to bend it on your ring mandrel to get roughly the size that you want. So when your weave goes all the way around, like once you've bent it all the way around, it comes back here and it gets to about here. That's when you want to stop. So it basically makes like the ring in its entirety. That's a point at which I'll stop, and I'll come back to you guys and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so mine's looking quite long. I really think it's long enough now. So I'm just putting it on my ring mandrel, and this is an adjustable ring, but you want like a rough ring size, you know, because it'll adjust up and down, but you know, if you make it a size 5, then it's not going to adjust up to like a 9, so you want to keep it in the ballpark of the size you want. All right, so mine has a nice overlap, and it's about 7.5/8, but of course it's adjustable. So now we just have to finish off these 2 little ends, and we will be done. So this weave here, the pattern, let me flip it back over. The way that the pattern comes up here and makes the 2 wraps, we're just going to continue with that so that our wire can be brought to this wire here. And now we're going to wrap around it. So you'll see in a second what's happening here. Instead of wrapping around the bottom wire like we normally do, we've brought our wire over by letting it, you know, go up on those 2 wraps that we do around both wires, and now we're just doing a little bit of a weave here. All right, so the length of this, we'll determine that in a second. But first, let's get rid of this wire. Let's just finish that off because we're so close. So I'm just gonna trim it off and leave myself just a little bit so I can make a swirl. So I'm grabbing with my pliers, my round nose pliers. I like to kind of squish the little end there. And then I'm just gonna make a nice little swirl. Like this. All right, so with this other wire that we're wrapping around, we want to bend it around the swirl like this. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swirl it in the other direction as well. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to give yourself a couple inches and trim off this wire here. The reason we trimmed it off is so that we can put it through this little loop that got formed. So I'm gonna put it through, sorry, it's not, there we go. Put it through twice. So 1 and 2. I'm just going to use my pliers to pull it through. It's looking kind of crookedy. There we go. That's nice and tight. All right, so let me show you that. Nice and up close. So we've attached that loop to our wire now. And now, with the little end that we have left here, just going to wrap around a few times. And then we're going to trim off this wire and make a loop going in the other direction. All right, so try to trim it just right on the edge there so that the wire end is not on the front or the back and it can't poke, but it's just right on the side edge. Then I'm just cutting it, leaving myself a little end to grab so that I can make a swirl. So now I'm just grabbing that. Ooh, all right, grabbing that little wire end with my pliers and making a loop. I know you can't see. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to hold it. There we go. So I made a loop. So that is it. That is our ring. Our adjustable elven leaf fairy kind of ring. And then here's the band. It just goes all the way around with this little weaving pattern. And again, I will link the supplies that you will need down below this video. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.